Before you know what happened, an image can already tell you who to admire and who to despise. That reaction often feels immediate and obvious, but it is usually the result of visual choices rather than evidence. Hi, I'm Sev. I research visual propaganda. This video is the first episode in a series where I use real images to explain how visual propaganda works in practice, how meaning, emotion, and judgment are shaped visually, often before facts or context are available. Each episode follows the same structure: one visual tactic, 3 recurring cues, and 1 counter tool you can apply immediately. The goal is to make the mechanics visible so they stop working automatically. Here's the tactic for this episode: hero and villain casting. Hero-villain casting is a rapid moral assignment produced by image-making choices, where a viewer can reach certainty before they understand what is happening. It works through selection and salience: what is included, how it is presented, what is emphasized, and what is omitted. In this sense, the camera organizes meaning by directing attention and evaluation, guiding perception of admiration, threat, and relevance. In Crescent van Leeuwen's reading images, visual representations operate as structured systems of meaning. Choices of angle, distance, and framing act as interpersonal cues that position the viewer in relation to subjects and shape perceived power and alignment. In Goffman's frame analysis, frames are interpretive structures that organize experience in advance, steering how an event is understood and judged. Entman's framing model defines framing as selection and salience, highlighting certain aspects of reality so particular interpretations become more likely. Applied to images, this helps explain how emphasis, omission, and repetition can stabilize moral roles through form. Each example is treated as a case of visual construction, not as evidence of intent. The point is to show how ordinary, normalized image-making practices can produce durable moral roles through form alone. The images are used as material for analysis, not as accusations. This framing keeps attention on how meaning is organized at the level of the image, before explanation, commentary, or broader context steps in. Cue number 1. Angle and distance. When the camera looks up at someone, a low angle often codes power, competence, or authority. When the camera moves closer, a close-up increases presence and importance. The viewer is invited to identify with the person in the frame. By contrast, a high angle can code weakness or inferiority, and a distant shot reduces identification. Someone who is far away in the frame is easier to dismiss or judge abstractly. This effect is not accidental. In visual communication theory, angle and distance are understood as relational choices. They structure how the viewer relates to the subject. In reading images, angle is described as a marker of symbolic power, while distance functions as a form of visual social proximity. Close shots simulate intimacy. Distant shots simulate detachment. The image shows a person and positions the viewer in relation to them. There is also overlap with proxemics, a concept developed by Edward T. Hall, which describes how physical distance structures social meaning. Visual media translate this logic into framing. Closeness suggests relevance and shared space. Distance suggests otherness. In political coverage, leaders giving speeches are often photographed from a low angle, framed from the waist up or closer. The background is simplified, the body fills the frame, and the viewer looks slightly upward. This combination does not prove authority, but it visually performs it. The viewer is positioned below literally and symbolically. By contrast, images of crowds, protesters, or detainees are often shot from above or from a distance. Individuals blur into a mass, faces become less readable, and the viewer is positioned as an observer instead of a participant. Even without captions, the framing encourages a different judgment: importance versus disposability, agency versus abstraction. The key point is repetition across images, not a single frame. If one group is consistently shown close and from below, while another is consistently shown far away or from above, the audience receives guidance toward a stable emotional hierarchy. Practical check. Ask whether the camera makes someone feel larger than life or small and punishable. Then compare multiple images instead of a single frame. Consistent proximity and angle usually signal a casting choice, not a neutral record. The second cue is lighting and clarity. Bright, clean, sharp images often read as trustworthy, controlled, and legitimate. Dark, harsh, or grainy images often read as dangerous, suspicious, or guilty. This effect persists even when the cause is purely technical, such as nighttime footage, bad weather, or a low-quality camera. The visual language still does the work. In multimodal analysis, clarity and technical finish function as cues for credibility. Texts in this tradition describe modality and salience as effects produced through variables such as sharpness of focus, tonal contrast, and visual noise, which shape what looks authoritative and what looks unstable. Visual culture scholarship also addresses the same mechanisms through the idea of photographic realism. Viewers often treat certain photographic styles as more real or reliable because they match familiar documentary conventions. That assumption can be activated by cleanliness, legibility, and high production value, then transferred to the subject being depicted. Film studies provide a parallel set of conventions. Noir lighting in particular has a long history of using shadow, obscured faces, and heavy contrast to cue danger or moral ambiguity. Those associations can carry over when similar visual textures appear in news or platform footage, even when they result from conditions or equipment, not staging. Consider how official press images of institutions are typically produced. Press conferences, portraits, and state events are photographed with even lighting, neutral color balance, and high resolution. Faces are readable, backgrounds are controlled, and visual noise is minimized. The result is visibility paired with legitimacy. The image communicates order and reliability before any statement is read. Now compare this with footage used to depict crime, unrest, or threat. These images are often dark, shot at night, handheld, grainy, or blurred. Faces are partially obscured, movement is frozen mid-gesture, and lighting is uneven. Even when the conditions are unavoidable, the effect is consistent. Danger is visually coded through obscurity. The audience reads suspicion or guilt from texture rather than evidence. What matters is repetition. When one category of people is repeatedly shown with clarity and another is repeatedly shown through visual degradation, the contrast produces a moral hierarchy. One side appears knowable and trustworthy, the other appears unstable or suspect. Practical check. Ask whether goodness is being coded through cleanliness and visibility. Then ask whether darkness, blur, or grain are being treated as signs of character rather than conditions of recording. If clarity consistently aligns with admiration and obscurity with distrust, you are seeing a visual casting choice, not a neutral depiction. Cue number 3. Expression, gesture, and group positioning. Open posture, calm movement, helping gestures, and steady eye contact commonly read as reliability and humanity. Closed posture, visible tension, grimaces, and frames caught mid-motion can read as aggression or guilt. These readings can shift in motion, but a still image fixes one moment and presents it as stable. Still images compress time into a single selection. A fleeting expression or gesture becomes a record, and viewers can treat it as dispositional evidence. Visual persuasion research describes how faces, bodies, and gesture cues carry interpretive force because audiences rely on familiar social signals when they read images. Sociological work on display helps explain why these cues feel legible. In gender advertisements, Irving Goffman analyzes how photographs and ads present recognizable postures, gaze, and interaction rituals as meaningful signals, shaping how viewers read character and social roles from a frozen moment. Group positioning reinforces the effect. Centering, proximity, and physical support signal belonging and legitimacy. Isolation signals deviation and concentrates responsibility. Captions and surrounding text can further stabilize interpretation by narrowing what the image is taken to mean, a function Roland Barthes describes as anchorage in the rhetoric of the image. In humanitarian or institutional imagery, people meant to appear trustworthy are often shown mid-action in cooperative contexts, assisting others, speaking calmly, or engaging in routine tasks. Their faces are readable, their gestures are controlled, and their bodies oriented toward others. This image suggests continuity, intention, and social integration. By contrast, individuals framed as threats are often shown alone, caught mid-motion, or displaying ambiguous expressions, shouting, grimacing, or gesturing without visible context. The frame isolates the body from surrounding causes or constraints. A single gesture becomes the whole story. Even when the action is reactive or momentary, the still image presents it as essence. This distinction becomes clearer across sets of images. If one group is consistently shown in relational, cooperative scenes, and another is consistently shown isolated or emotionally dysregulated, the viewer is being guided toward a moral sorting. Humanity is distributed unevenly through framing. Practical check. Ask who receives cues of humanity, readable faces, stable gestures, social context. Then ask who is stripped of those cues through isolation, frozen motion, or emotional exaggeration. When humanity appears selectively allocated, you are seeing a casting decision. So what can you do with this in practice? The counter tool is a simple 3-step checklist. Step 1. Separate role from reality. Ask what you actually know from verified information and what the image is prompting you to feel. Step 2. Name the cue. Identify whether angle, distance, lighting, clarity, expression, gesture, or group positioning is doing the work. Naming the mechanism reduces its speed. Step 3. Look for missing context. Ask what happened immediately before or after the frame, who selected this image, and how a different frame might change the interpretation. Hero and villain casting works because it compresses complex, uncertain situations into a simple moral story. It feels efficient and satisfying, which is why it is so widely used. When you can recognize the cues, you regain the ability to choose how much certainty you grant to a single image. In the next episode, I'll focus on victim imagery, how visuals decide who deserves empathy, and how urgency is manufactured. If you notice hero or villain casting in the meantime, describe an example without naming people and identify the cue you saw.